Writing a perfect resume stopped being a real advantage the moment anyone with a browser and 2 minutes of prompt engineering could spit out the same Harvard-approved prose. The new differentiator isn't how pretty your CV looks in the ATS queue, it's the hard-to-fake signals you leave in the world. Conference badges, shipped products, open source ownership, and the grit you show once the interviewer starts throwing curveballs. This episode walks through why the résumé game changed, which signals still matter, and how to start stacking them in your favor. Introduction. On a Tuesday morning last winter, I watched a junior dev ask ChatGPT for a Google-caliber résumé. 30 seconds later, he had a document that looked suspiciously like half the résumé I had reviewed that week, leadership bullet points polished to a mirror shine, quantifiable impact everywhere, all the right acronyms in all the right places. 5 minutes after that, he was spitballing alternative versions tuned for Meta, Snowflake, and a stealth AI startup whose name I can't pronounce. The kid hadn't changed a line of code in his life. The language model did the shape-shifting for him. That was the moment I realized the résumé, once a semi-reliable filter, had become a cheap commodity. So what now? How do you stand out when the baseline has been automated to perfection? Grab a coffee, we're going to talk about the new currency of credibility. The CV arms race. Everyone is suddenly a senior wizard. Applicant tracking systems used to be the final boss. Learn the right keywords, keep the formatting clean, sprinkle numbers like confetti, and you were golden. These days you can feed a half-baked work history into an LLM and get back a document that hits every ATS regex and still manages to sound impactful. The playing field didn't level, it collapsed into a flat sheet of identical buzzwords. Recruiters know it too. I've sat in hiring things where a sour-faced engineering manager mutters, "Another ChatGPT résumé?" before the name finishes loading on the screen. The CV hasn't died, but its signal-to-noise ratio is now worse than a Wi-Fi connection in a steel mill. If you like this content, feel free to check out my Substack for more. That means the game shifted from write the best résumé to prove you wrote the résumé. Authenticity, the stuff that bleeds when you poke it, matters again. The catch? Authenticity takes sweat, time, and sometimes public humiliation. There's no one-click prompt for that. Signal versus noise, what actually survives the recruiter's glance. Referrals, helpful, but the hit rate plateaued once every tech worker realized they could farm LinkedIn for connections. GitHub links, honestly, most recruiters don't open them unless a hiring manager begs. Certifications, half the hiring panel failed the same multiple choice test you just aced. What still cuts through is a visible, public footprint that can't be forged overnight. Did you give a talk that people are still quoting on Twitter? Did you ship a product that strangers paid for with actual money? Are you the name that pops up in issue threads when a popular open source library catches fire? Those things show up in a quick Google search and they're stubbornly immune to LLM fakery. The diagram isn't rocket science. The more public, sweat-soaked and user-validated your work is, the higher the trust multiplier when your name hits a recruiter's screen. Step onto a stage, not just into their inbox. Public speaking sounds terrifying until you remember half the tech talks you've endured were glorified feature demos with shaky Wi-Fi. The bar is lower than you think, yet the payoff is huge. KubeCon, We Are Developers, local DevOps meetups at the brewery down the street, they all need fresh voices. Craft a talk that solves a gnarly problem you actually hit on the job, submit a CFP, and suddenly you're on a stage facing 1,000 blinking faces. Why does this work? Because conferences curate. Out of the 500 submissions, only a fraction land a slot. Your badge tells recruiters someone else vetted you. Even better, the talk lives on YouTube. Now your resume links to a 20-minute video where you fluently dissect scaling disasters, proof of expertise, communication skills, and the fact you can function outside a text editor. Ship something people touch and maybe pay. For side projects used to die on localhost. Throw yours into the wild instead. I'm talking a real app with logins, billing, the occasional 2 AM pager duty slap. Doesn't matter if revenue is pizza money small, Those first 10 paying users are testimonial gold. They demonstrate you can navigate the whole stack: product sense, UI polish, API integration, CI/CD, observability, customer support when someone forgets their password. I once hired a backend engineer who built a Chrome extension that let writers bulk upload stories to Medium. His code was messy, tests were thin, but his metrics dashboard showed 3,000 weekly actives. That screamed resourcefulness louder than any bullet point. Become the maintainer, not the tourist. Forking a repo and fixing a typo gets you the GitHub contribution graph dopamine hit. Becoming a maintainer, triaging issues, reviewing PRs from strangers, keeping CI green, that's a different beast. It teaches empathy, architectural foresight, the political art of telling someone their idea is terrible without sparking a flame war. And guess what? Recruiters desperate for evidence of teamwork will skim the project's issue tracker and see your name stamped on every tough discussion. No glossy résumé line does that. When the interview lights turn on, all the social proof in the world won't save you if you blank on a graph problem or butcher a system design whiteboard. The interview is still a sport, and sports punish rust. So grind the lead code reps, rehearse designing a rate-limited chat service until you can draw it left-handed, and memorize the subtle difference between consistent hashing and rendezvous hashing. It's annoying, yes. It's also the final boss that hasn't been automated yet. Résumé used to be the movie trailer. Now they're just the poster in the lobby. Anyone can print one. The real proof you belong on the engineering roster shows up in places that require skin in the game. Conference stages, production incidents, open source firefights, paying customers. Stack a few of those and your CV stops being a sheet of paper and starts becoming a breadcrumb trail recruiters can't ignore. And when they finally pick up the phone, have your algorithms sharp, your diagrams crisp, and your war stories ready. The bots made the résumé cheap, they also raised the bar for everything that comes after. That's it for today's episode, see you in the next one.